What's up, guys? I'm the Maha Mechanic, and today we are going to be rewiring our radiator fans here. So, let's get into it. So, previously the wiring, as you can see here, this goes down to the radiator fans. It's just an odd wire. The wiring done to the radiator fans is not good, and they actually don't kick on. So when I'm sitting at like stoplights and stuff, the car tends to run on the hot side when it's not moving, but when it's moving, it's fine. I already replaced the right down there. You can see the thermal fan switch in hopes that that would fix it, but to no avail. So I decided to just go through it and redo the entire wiring system, since the last person to do it did kind of a hacksmith job on it. So yeah, I will be using relay. So I'll show you how to wire this relay. And I'm going to be utilizing both of the fans, not just the single fan. So I'm going to have this relay wired to where it turns on both of the fans. And I'm also going to wire in a bypass switch so I can turn it on whenever I want to, as well as using the thermal fan switch so it'll turn on when it gets hot. So yeah. So first task, before we can start measuring wires and stuff, is going to be where we're going to mount these relays. I got these relays, or weatherproof relays. I'm going to be mainly using 12 gauge wire. So I was looking around the engine bay. I don't want to put it anywhere that's going to be really noticeable. And then I looked down here at this weird little clamp thing. I don't know what it's even there for in the first place. It's not clamping anything over there. It's just kind of in the way. So I'm thinking if I can remove those two bolts that hold it in, that one there and that one there, that I can just use one of the bolts. I can drill this tab out a little bit bigger, but then use this tab and just bolt it to the frame right there. So we'll see how that looks, and if it's not very noticeable, that's probably where I'll keep it. So let's do that now. I kind of like this location. It's not, if you're looking at the engine bay, it's kind of tucked down there in the darkness, and you can't really even tell it's there unless you really look. And it points all the wires down to the ground where the actual engine harness is. And where the radiator fans are, so it kind of works out. And I'm mounting it right next to a ground location, so but even though this isn't really where, I'm not going to ground the relay directly to that ground. It's got to go to the switches first, but the thermal fan switch is right there, and the ground is on the other side of the frame, so I mean it's pretty close together as well. I keep all my wires from having to run long ones. The only really long one I'll have to run is one to the battery and one to the inside of the car for my switch, my bypass switch. So this should work out nicely. Before we get started, just want to go over what we're doing here. I made a little wiring diagram here. So for our relay, our pinout for our relay, 87 is going to be to our fans, so it's going to be here, supplying the 12 volt power to our fans. 85 is going to be thermal fan switch and interior switch to ground, which is this leg here. So we're going to go to the thermal fan switch, and at the same time to the interior switch, and those will both be running to ground. And then 86 will be ignition 12 volts, which will be this circuit here. We'll tap into something that has ignition 12 volts inside the car. And then pin 30 on the relay will be going straight from the battery to the relay, and it will have an inline fuse there. So yeah, I got everything we need over there, and yeah, let's get started. So for our switch, I'm going to be using a OEM mirror selecting switch. Since I don't know why I'm missing a switch in my car, but there's a little slot that's missing a switch. I think it might have been there as like a dummy pad, but someone removed it. Anyway, we're going to be removing this, or we're going to be replacing it with this because it's going to remain really nice. We might get rid of all this lettering on here though. It's got to look OEM. I've already tested it. These two are the ones that connect the circuit, so we'll tap into these ones. Not sure what this one does. Might look it up, but might not. Yeah, so this will be our switch on the inside that will wire to ground. So in addition to wiring in the relay and the interior switch to power both fans, we're going to be replacing both fans with the 6-blade fans from the later models. Since I have an early model, it only has the 3-blade fans, and I was testing one and then it kind of blew up on me because I accidentally hit something with it. And yeah, so that prompted me to get the 6-blade fan. These move hardly any air compared to these, so might as well have the best fans on there. So I got 2 of these. Now the fan shroud I'm going to reuse. So if you can see here is the lower radiator hose. Here's our new fan. It contacts with the outside corner of the fan itself. So you didn't need to cut anything on it. I didn't cut anything on. They'll fit in the radiator housing, the radiator fan housing itself, but you're gonna have to trim off this kind of corner so that it'll clear the radiator hose. If not, you're gonna spring quite a leak. So I just clearanced this fan, kind of just rounded off all the corners on each of the fan, cut like the same exact pieces. That's the key. You want them to be the same so that there's no odd vibration. But now it clears that radiator hose, so be good to get this reinstalled and then continue wiring. So right now I'm just going to wire up the wire to our battery, to our relay, so I'm going to measure out how much wire I need to do that. So right now, what I'm on to now is I've already got my ground run up to the cluster of grounds up there. As you can see, the one with the electrical tape on it, I've got that one run where I want it, and that one just goes to the thermal fan switch up there, as you can see. And I've got the thermal fan switch run to our relay here. So now I'm starting the task of wiring our device, which is going to be blue, which is obviously our fans. So we've got those there. What I'm going to do is create like another sub harness, essentially, for the fans, so that I can put a connector on the end of this wire, male or female, and then put 2 wires, one for each fan. So one to go here and one to go over there. Put those in one connector, like merge them into one connector, so that I can connect both of them to this one wire right here. So that when I want to take the radiator fans out, if I need to again, I can just unplug it from here, and I don't have to unplug it from, or unplug the connectors from the actual fans itself. I can just disconnect the little sub harness here, and I'll be able to take it all out. So yeah, I'll get back to you guys when I got the little sub harness made for this. So let's do that now. So as you can see here, I just finished the sub harness for the radiator fans. They go like this. This end is a connector that's going to the relay, and this pin is going, or this blade is going onto one of the ground wires in the engine harness. So I'm not going to loom it yet, or I'm not going to, probably what I'll do is just electrical tape it all, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just going to make sure, get everything, all the wiring done, and then test everything, and then once it works, then I will get to making this look pretty. So there's that. Now we still have to run ignition 12 volts and the switch. So we're almost done, but not really, and we still need to run our relay to the battery, which it won't be very hard. It's just going to be finding a way to route it up in through there, and we're going to have to actually add our inline fuse probably over here somewhere later. But then yeah, we'll just route it to the battery and be done with that. That'll probably be the last thing I do, just because that's going to be adding power to the system. So yeah. All right, so now that I've got my sub harness done and everything wired for the fans itself, got the fans all trimmed up so that they fit in there nicely, got everything put together on there, we're going to be going to wire in our ignition 12 volt signal source. So I'm going to do that by tapping into the ignition coil itself. Tapping into by, what I'm saying is just taking off the bolt on the nut on the positive terminal of the ignition coil, and then slapping another wire on the positive port. So I'm now done wiring up our relay. We only needed 4 of the 5 pins, so we're leaving the middle one unused. I'm probably going to cut it back and put some electrical tape on it back there, but we've got our pin, I think it's 85, pin 85 going to our thermal fan switch. I'm gonna have to probably strip out a piece back in here and then wire a smaller gauge wire, and then run that smaller gauge wire from here inside the car to the switch. Just so that when I can hit it, it will override the signal coming from this switch and give it ground this way, so that there will be a ground signal coming to the relay before the thermal fan switch. So that's pin 85. Pin 86 is ignition 12 volts. I just wired that in. See here, it's the white one, and I wired it to a longer red one, and I'm going to be putting it on the battery, or not the battery, the coil, ignition coil. We got pin 87, which is to our fans here, the blue one. I use blue wire for that as well. Connects to a connector there, splits off power, ground. You see it's that right there to the connectors. And then pin 30, which is the red, will go all the way. Got this boatload of wire. We're going to run it all the way from down in here all the way up around to our battery. So I just wired in this small 14 gauge, I think, or maybe 16 gauge wire. That, it's really long. I'm going to cut it to length, but I'm going to run this to the switch so that and then I'm going to run the switch to ground so that when this receives ground, it would automatically bypass that and go straight to the relay. So yeah, now that our harness is now complete, now we can install this for the final time and start routing all of our wires. So this is going to be the fun part. All right, so I got my power wire ran. I kind of threw it in the harness that goes
along the firewall so you can't see it. And I got to here, and it's, you know, can't really go around a corner in a harness. So I took it out of the harness and then went through that grommet. And now I'm just gonna do the same thing here. Just clamp it down in here. But when I do that, when I take these off, I'm gonna clean all of the contacts up and whatnot, just make sure we're still looking good. So right now, I'm thinking I'm gonna cut right here and then wire in my inline fuse. As you can see here, just solder that. I'm just gonna solder that into that wire over there. So let's do that now. I'll come back to when I got that soldered in. All right, so I just got our inline fused wired in here, as you can see there. And it's actually long enough that I can just run it straight to the battery from the inline fuse. I got the wire all hooked up to the battery now, so now we're good. I ran our ground wire all the way through the firewall, all the way to our little switch panel, and here's the cutout that I'm missing a switch in, so it kind of worked out perfectly. Anyway, this switch is in worse condition than the actual switch that I got, so I'm just going to swap this one out with this one, and then I'm going to throw this one over here and use it as the fan switch. So I'm just going to transfer over all the wires real quick. Alright, so I just got this connector on the switch, got that switch swapped out. So I found with my multimeter that this pin and this pin, so kind of like the diagonal ones, those are the ones that make contact when you flip the switch. So this is no ground. Flip the switch, then it connects and completes the circuit there. So now all we have to do is run a wire from this terminal to ground, and then we're done. So after some thought, I don't even have to run or re-terminal a wire. I can just use the ground from this one. As you can see here, this is I think this is the rear wiper switch. That's what it looks like, a rear wiper. But as you can see over there, I don't have a rear wiper. So this works out perfectly. I'm just going to make sure that this ground wire actually goes to ground. And if it does, we're good. We'll just take that wire, bloop, plonk it on here, bloop. So yeah, let me test that. Let me test that real quick. So as you can see, I tested it before I put it on the switch, but boom. I got one of my leads going onto the battery. You can see here, I don't know why it's saying 109 ohms, but when I flip the switch, drops down to just around 0 ohms. So I'd say that's sufficient enough. Now we can turn the key on and see if it works. So we got our whole wiring project done. Got our relay wired in. It works with the switch, so that means it will definitely work with my new thermal fan switch in there. It doesn't work when the key isn't in the ignition, which is a plus, so the car actually has to be on for them to turn on. And yeah, I had my foot out the door right here, and I could feel a breeze coming from the fans. So that's really good. So that concludes the 6-blade fan conversion on this early 944, as well as wiring a relay to power both of the fans at the same time and wiring in a bypass switch. So yeah, if you found this video informative, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more. Remember, no matter experience or your skill level, you can do simple wiring jobs like this. Keep on improving.